Conservatives rarely want to bring up the issue of race. It has become a narrative. If you mention the word Chicago, it is now
There's a new
racist.
one tonight on Chris Matthews. Apartment is racist.
Apartment is racist. All right, well, you think about it, everything is racist.
You guys are so lucky. I did nothing but watch MSNBC.
Racial demagoguery from the 70s to Obama. Mugged. This is just a short montage of things that have been, Al Gore, they don't want to count you in the census. Republicans have the wrong policy for black America. Just watch a little snippet because it goes on every election cycle. Watch this.
I think that they played the race card on me. And we now know from memos from the campaign and everything that they plan to do it all along.
An overwhelming portion of the intensely demonstrated animosity toward President Barack Obama is based on the fact that he is a black man.
The Republicans hate black people.
They are in favor of affirmative action if you can dunk the basketball or sink a three-point shot. But they're not in favor of it if you merely have the potential to be a leader in your community.
He doesn't look like all those other presidents on those dollar bills, They're
going to put you all back in chains.
When you don't vote, you allow another cross to burn.
He's speaking to that fringe out there who do not want to see anybody other than a white person in a leadership position.
On June 7, 1998, in Texas, my father was killed. He was beaten, chained, and then dragged 3 miles to his death, all because he was black. So when Governor George W. Bush refused to support hate crimes legislation, it was like my father was killed all over again.
Every election, class warfare, scare old people, race card. You decided to go after the issue of Democrats playing the race card hard.
And their racism. And just take the first 3 from your beautiful montage there. We start with Bill Clinton, champion to black people.
First black president.
When he was inaugurated, when he was first elected governor, he embraced Orval Faubus at his inauguration, the man who blocked the Little Rock schoolhouse door, and Republican President Dwight Eisenhower had to send federal troops. When Clinton was president, he invited his mentor, J. William Fulbright, to the White House to give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Next one, Jimmy Carter.
Fulbright was a segregationist.
Oh, see, not only did he vote against the '64 Civil Rights Act, he signed the Southern Manifesto. He was a ferocious segregationist, as was Orval Faubus, Bill Clinton's good friends. The next one you had was, Jimmy Carter, an overwhelming proportion of the Tea Partiers are racist. But Jimmy Carter also claimed he cried when Ronald Reagan gave the alleged, this is a big myth for the left, the Philadelphia speech opened his campaign in 1980 in the home of the KKK. No, Ronald Reagan didn't. He opened his campaign in New Jersey and then Detroit, and when he was in Detroit, he made fun of Jimmy Carter for actually giving his opening speech in the home of the KKK that time. And I would add that Jimmy Carter also endorsed Maddox for governor, the segregationist restaurant owner who chased blacks from his restaurant with a shotgun. And he was endorsed by Jimmy Carter, a Democrat running, of course, against a Republican integrationist. Al Gore, well, of course, his father, Al Gore Sr., voted against the '64 Civil Rights Act, was an unrepentant segregationist. All these are liberals. The segregationists in the Senate were not only all Democrats, they weren't all Southerners, but they were all Democrats. They remained liberals. There was only one of more than a dozen that ever became a Republican, and it's the only one people associate with segregation. Strom Thurmond, 18 years after running as a Dixiecrat. Notice he did not call himself a Dixie Can, because the segregation wing, the racist wing, that was always part of the Democratic Party, the same way the abortion ladies are a part of the Democratic Party now. And they have tried to make up for this awful history by, first of all, just reversing the parties. They call this Democrat segregationist Southerners. Again, not all Southerners.
When you look at demographics, in a sense, these tactics, class warfare, scaring granny, and the race card has been you have to acknowledge a truth. The truth is, to a certain extent, it has been successful.
Yes, because Democrats are demagogues. They are always appealing to a mob, ginning people up with lies and anger, and then having been the segregationists and the racists, and of course the Klan was an outgrowth of the Democratic Party, they spent the next several decades fighting imaginary racists, generally, Irish cops who lived in Queens, and that's what I go through at the beginning of the book. We had decades of hoax hate crimes, alleged racial shootings. I mean, according to the New York Times, the Klan was running the police force in New York. And it was only when the O.J. verdict, I mean, that's the arc of the book, I think that actually set America free.
You go back to that. Before we get to revisiting all this, I want to stay with this campaign, and we'll get to that in a second.
I'd be very happy
to. But if you don't vote for President Obama, the insinuation is if you oppose Obamacare, you oppose the stimulus bill, jobs bill, if you're a Tea Party member, this is a narrative. All of this is used. Like Republicans, a black church is going to burn. Al Gore screaming at the top of his lungs, Republicans have the wrong agenda for African Americans. They don't even want to count you in the census, which leads to, by the way, voter ID laws. That's racist.
Yes.
You can't get into the DNC unless you have a voter ID or some type of ID.
It is never white guilt, whites being bullied by racism, by white liberals, by the way, who ought to be guilty about something, has never led to anything good. It led to the John Lindsay administration in this city. It led to Dinkins. And finally, because of the O.J. verdict, we were through. We got Giuliani, which has saved tens of thousands of black lives by enforcing criminal laws, by going after criminals despite being called a racist throughout his tenure. White guilt has produced mistake after mistake, including the 2008 election, when more whites voted for Obama than voted for a Democrat for decades.
Under Rudy Giuliani, 600,000 fewer people. And by the way, there are more, in terms of actual numbers, there are more whites than blacks on food stamps, et cetera. But we have 15 million more. Under Giuliani, Republicans, you know, their opportunity increases for everybody.
And they're less likely to be killed by criminals. Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a lie foisted on America by white liberals, not by black people. And they are up to their old tricks again, and they have been doing this from the Philadelphia speech to the apocryphal Southern strategy. The Southern strategy was a landslide strategy, and in an important chapter in the book, I point out that we never did win the Goldwater states. We won the South once the Dixiecrats died out. They kept voting for the Democrats.
It's amazing, because this is such revisionism. That you say, you know, one of the things you said in the book is the slogan during the Bush years. Remember Hillary Clinton? And we get this right to disagree with any minister screaming. Yes. Know, and now you point out that dissent was patriotic then, but now dissent is racist.
Oh, yes.
In this election, which has now become a mantra. It's being repeated. Now, there's a political strategy side, tactical strategy that we got to deal with here.
Yes.
And that is, how do Republicans, how does Al Gore have the audacity to say this? Yeah. How do they get away? The James Byrd ad in 2000, the Missouri ad in 98. It's happening now in this election.
Willie Horton, an ad that never showed a picture of Willie Horton, and it was the greatest political ad in U.S. history. It nailed Michael Dukakis for a policy he was solely responsible.
A convicted murderer gets a weekend pass.
Furloughing, that was exclusively Michael Dukakis' veto. Even the Massachusetts legislature knew it was insane when the Massachusetts Supreme Court extended weekend furloughs to first-degree murderers who were never supposed to be let out of prison. But no. Michael Dukakis proudly, with the admiration of the ACLU, vetoed it. And that had more effect on the 1980 election, 88 election than any other. And so what do liberals do? First, they lie about furlough policies. When that doesn't work, they call it racist.
Right, but you go through it like a history the way we have. In many ways, we've allowed this narrative to build and build and build. And whenever there's a whole high-profile case, you go back to O.J., you go back to Rodney King. We've seen, I guess you mentioned the more recent one, Trayvon Martin, the Duke LaCrosse case. In every single case, a narrative gets advanced. Then it gets moved into the political arena.
Right.
What have we learned from all of these cases? Because there is, step by step, what is happening?
What we've learned is everyone, blacks especially, are better off when the white guilt bank is shut down, as it was for more than a decade after the O.J. verdict. And liberals kept trying to push the racial narrative in their newspapers and on TV, but Americans just weren't buying it. They were done after October 3rd, 1995, when they saw that verdict and saw black law students at Howard University cheering it. That was it. And for a dozen years, we had paradise. Suddenly, people weren't walking on eggshells. You could have Giuliani enforcing sane criminal laws in New York and not caring that he was constantly being called a racist by liberals and Al Sharpton and the Clinton administration. And look what it did. And look what it did to New York. It transformed the city, and it saved, because the policies were continued, tens of thousands of black lives.
How about in terms of the political campaign? We now have, I don't even really call them conservatives, but, you know, the David Frums of the world, those that are out there suggesting Romney is mismanaging the campaign. You've been an early you know, loud, vocal supporter. You wanted Mitt Romney, you got him. He picked, I think, a great vice presidential candidate, and that's Paul Ryan. You see the polls, it's neck and neck, maybe a little different in some of the swing states. Some people are almost writing, you know, the finger pointing's begun among the inner elite Republican circles as if election days happened.
No, don't worry. Romney's going to win, but the media is in war mode, and that's why they are not talking about Benghazi. All they are talking about is racism. I mean, literally tonight, because Mitt Romney gave a statement about health care in which he mentioned departments, that is being cited as proof of racism.
How does that get put into the racist category?
It's almost as crazy as Lawrence O'Donnell saying a reference to Obama's golfing reminds people of Tiger Woods, and Tiger Woods is very popular, isn't he? But anyway, that was supposed to be racist. And it's like the whitest sport other than possibly polo. Golfing is racist. Chicago,
stay right
racist.
there. We got to take a break. Mugged, the racial demagoguery of the left from the 70s till today. More with Ann Coulter. Busy night tonight on Hannity.